Season 5, Chapter 1, The Shattered Peace. Opening scene, The Way to Victory. The chapter begins with somber tone, capturing the aftermath of the brutal war that has just ended. The rebellion's victory over the Architects, while monumental, has left the world in tatters. The cities are in ruins, the fields are barren, and the people, though free, are broken by years of war. Darius stands on a hill overlooking a shattered village that was once a thriving town, now reduced to rubble. The smoke of distant fires still rises in the sky, reminders of the chaos that reigns. Darius's heart is heavy. Though the rebellion has won, there's no true sense of peace. He is no longer the hopeful leader he once was. The brutal realities of war have changed him. The war has cost him more than just allies. It has cost him his innocence, his trust, and much of his own identity. He doesn't see a world waiting for leadership. He sees a world fractured beyond repair, and he's unsure if even he can put it back together. The fractured world. In the aftermath of the Architects' fall, a new struggle emerges. Not one of armies or magic, but of ideologies. Various factions have risen from the ashes, each with their own vision of what the world should be. Some are former soldiers of the rebellion, who now seek to seize control of the power vacuum left behind. Others are disenfranchised survivors of the old regime, seeking revenge for the crimes committed against them. There are also those who, disillusioned with the rebellion's promise of peace, have begun to rally under banners of vengeance and anarchy. Darius is tasked with managing these growing tensions. His once close allies, such as Zephyr and Lyra, have begun to distance themselves, uncertain of his path forward. Zephyr, a former architect who now seeks redemption, insists that Darius needs to unite the fractured factions to prevent further bloodshed. Lyra, on the other hand, is more cautious, torn between her loyalty to Darius and her growing doubts about his leadership. There are whispers of rebellion within the rebellion, with those questioning if Darius is truly fit to lead this new world, or if he is merely clinging to the remnants of the past. Arya's arrival, a mysterious figure. Into this tense atmosphere steps Arya, an enigmatic figure from the Far East, cloaked in mystery. She arrives at Darius's war council with a proposition. She claims to know of an ancient way to unite the fractured realms, a path that could bring lasting peace, but at a cost. She is calm, composed, and unerringly confident, and her sudden arrival raises more questions than answers. She speaks of forgotten traditions, hidden powers, and deep connections that span across the lands. Darius is immediately intrigued, yet wary. Who is she really? And what does she stand to gain from offering such a solution? Arya is a woman of many layers. While she claims to seek peace, she also speaks with a certain detached authority, as though she already understands a path to victory, as though she's been waiting for this moment all her life. She claims that there is an ancient order, the Keepers of the Weave, who hold knowledge that could stabilize the world, but the price is steep. Darius's instincts tell him that there's more to her than she's revealing. He senses a depth to her that suggests she's played a role in shaping events from behind the scenes. However, her offer is tempting. If she's telling the truth, her knowledge could save the world from total collapse. Darius's struggle, leadership tested. Despite the importance of Arya's proposition, Darius's leadership is already being tested by smaller, everyday decisions. He must balance the desires of warring factions, the pleas of those who seek justice for past atrocities, and the demands of citizens who want stability above all else. His once clear vision of a world free of the Architects is clouded by his growing doubts about his ability to lead. Darius finds himself haunted by the question, what is true peace? Is it simply the absence of war? Or does it require more, a reparation of broken trust, a rebuilding of fractured relationships, and perhaps most challenging of all, the healing of the wounds in his own heart? Lyra, who has been a steadfast ally, now feels distant. She no longer looks at Darius the way she once did, as a beacon of hope. She sees the scars he carries, both physical and emotional. The burden of leadership is wearing him down, and she worries that he's too focused on holding on to what was, rather than embracing what can be. In a quiet moment, Lyra confronts Darius, questioning whether he's truly fit to continue leading. Her words sting, but they are laced with concern, not malice. Darius doesn't have an answer, but her challenge only adds to his internal conflict, the first test of trust. Darius has long prided himself on being able to read people, to understand the motivations that drive them. But Aria's arrival stirs something deep within him, a feeling he can't fully explain. She is a puzzle, and every piece of her story feels deliberate, calculated. Still, the rebellion is on the brink of collapse, and the prospect of her solution is too alluring to ignore, with the world teetering on the edge of another conflict. Darius knows that he cannot afford to ignore her. As Arya outlines her plan, Darius's instincts scream at him to be cautious. He pushes her for more information, pressing her on her true motives and on the potential consequences of her actions. Arya remains calm, yet hints at deeper knowledge of Darius's past, referencing his bloodline's connection to the architects. Her words cut through him like a knife, unsettling his already fragile state of mind. Could she be manipulating him? Or is she genuinely offering a chance at salvation? The chapter closes with Darius standing alone at the edge of the camp, staring into the horizon. His heart is heavy with uncertainty, and the weight of leadership bears down on him more than ever. As night falls, he knows one thing for certain. He cannot rebuild the world alone. But can he trust Arya, or is he walking into yet another trap? His decision, which will come soon, will determine not only the fate of the rebellion, but the future of the entire world. Chapter 2. The Return of the Architects. Opening scene, a world unsettled. The chapter opens with a stark contrast to the fleeting sense of peace from Chapter 1. Despite Darius's efforts to rebuild and unite the factions, strange occurrences are beginning to spread across the land. The world, still healing from the rebellion's victory over the architects, is now plagued by a new, ominous threat. In remote corners of the world, unnatural storms rage, leaving entire villages submerged in sudden floods. Unseen forces whisper on the wind, and dark creatures, twisted, monstrous shapes, emerge from the shadows. The sky itself seems tainted, darkening unnaturally, as though the very fabric of reality is being bent by some unseen power. As the leaders of the rebellion gather in the newly formed capital, Darius receives word of these disturbances from distant regions, especially from the west, where once thriving cities are now in ruins and mysterious phenomena have taken hold. Darius feels a creeping unease. Something ancient, something he thought destroyed with the architects, is stirring once more. He cannot ignore it, for the world is not truly free. The shadow of the architects is still cast over it, and this new wave of corruption threatens to consume the remnants of peace they fought so hard to achieve. The discovery of dark magic. Darius sets out with a small, trusted group of allies, including Zephyr, Lyra, and a few skilled mages in the rebellion, to investigate the source of these disturbances. They travel to the western frontier, a region where reports of strange creatures and dark, twisting magic have intensified. The further they venture into this land, the more apparent it becomes that the forces of the architects, though defeated, have not disappeared. There are signs, abandoned ruins emitting strange, magical pulses, ancient artifacts being unearthed by the violent storms, and fragments of corrupted creatures, remnants of the architects' twisted experiments, appearing where they shouldn't. Darius and his group come across a desolate town, now overrun with the mutated and monstrous offspring of old experiments. Beasts that seem to be the offspring of both magic and machinery, half flesh, half machine. The town's survivors are few and scattered, and they speak of voices in the dark, a corrupting influence that has returned with the storms. This is not just a work of natural forces. Something far darker is at play, a new threat, the architects' hidden survivors. In a remote, hidden temple deep within a forgotten forest, Darius's team uncovers an ancient architect's stronghold, one that had been abandoned during the final stages of the rebellion. Inside, they find signs that the architect's remnants have been planning in secret. A small faction of their leaders, the Eclipsed Architects, survived the war and have begun to restore their lost empire. The group finds old, half-burnt manuscripts that speak of a dark mirror, a powerful artifact capable of harnessing the remnants of the architect's magic, hidden away in the world. This mirror, it seems, is tied to the power that continues to infect the land. The group is ambushed in the ruins by a group of mysterious figures, shadowed, hooded individuals with strange, otherworldly aura. Zephyr, the former architect, senses something deeply disturbing about them. They are not just practitioners of the architect's dark magic. They are the very disciples of the architect's ideals, still working to revive their twisted vision. As the figures vanish into shadows, Darius realizes with growing horror that the architects, though defeated, have not been eradicated. They've only gone underground, preparing for resurgence. The secret plan, the architect's ultimate goal. The discovery forces Darius to re-examine everything he thought he knew about the architect's defeat. The final battle, he thought, had ended their reign. But the truth is darker, far darker. The remnants of the architects are not simply plotting to rebuild their empire. They are intent on resurrecting something far more dangerous. Through the remnants of their dark magic and forbidden rituals, the architect's followers are trying to harness the power of the very fabric of reality itself, using the dark mirror to open a gateway to an ancient, forgotten world. A world where the architect's power could be restored, and they could bring forth their twisted reign anew. The dark mirror is the key to all of this. It is more than just an artifact. It's a conduit to an otherworldly dimension, where unimaginable power lies dormant. The architect's original creators, beings from beyond the known realms, sought to merge this otherworldly force with their own magic to create the ultimate weapon, one capable of reshaping reality itself. The architect's ultimate goal was never just world domination. It was to rewrite the very nature of existence, to turn the world into a reflection of their twisted ideals. Darius's dilemma: how to stop the architect's return. As Darius processes this new information, a profound sense of guilt and fear settles over him. He knows that if the architects succeed, everything they fought for will be undone. The lands they rebuilt, the fragile peace they forged, it will all crumble into darkness. But the task ahead is far more dangerous than anything he's faced before. The architects are not merely an empire. They are a force that seeks to reshape reality itself. Darius must find a way to track down and destroy the dark mirror before the architects can use it to open a gateway. The world's very fabric is at stake. But this task is not one he can accomplish alone. He turns to Zephyr, who, though still haunted by his past with the architects, holds crucial knowledge of their dark magic and their inner workings. Together, they begin to formulate a plan to locate and destroy the dark mirror, knowing that it will not only be a battle against powerful sorcerers and beasts, but also against time itself. Lyra's warnings, a growing rift. Amidst the growing urgency, Lyra begins to voice her concerns more openly. She warns Darius that the power of the architects, once it's unleashed, may be unstoppable, more so than anything they've faced before. She sees the fear in Darius's eyes, a fear that he cannot shake. She, too, fears that this fight may demand a sacrifice greater than any before. But Darius, driven by the need to protect the world from the horrors of the architect's past, refuses to back down. The tension between Darius and Lyra grows as they continue their journey. Lyra, still uncertain of her place in the world after rebellion, feels increasingly conflicted about following Darius. Her loyalty is being tested, not by his leadership, but by the darker choices he is forced to make. She fears that in his desperation to stop the architects, he might lose himself, just as his father once did. Climactic discovery: the mirror's location. As the team continues to follow the trail left by the architect's remnants, they are led to a desolate and treacherous landscape, a vast canyon filled with ancient ruins and cracked, shattered earth. At the heart of this desolation, they find the ruins of an ancient city, buried beneath layers of dirt and ash. The city, once a thriving center of knowledge and power, has been abandoned for centuries. Here, Darius and his team uncover the final pieces of the puzzle: the location of the dark mirror. It is hidden beneath the roots of an ancient, forbidden tree, the Weeping Tree, said to be the last remnant of a civilization that existed long before the architects. The tree, twisted and gnarled, has become a symbol of decay and corruption. But the mirror lies at its base, a relic of an older, darker time. As Darius stands before it, the air thick with tension, he knows that this is the moment that will define their fate. If they fail to destroy the mirror, all they've fought for will be lost. But even as they approach, they know that the architect's survivors are closing in, and the final battle for the future of the world is about to begin. Chapter 3: The Betrayal in the Shadows. Opening scene: a path fraught with danger. The chapter begins with the rebellion venturing deeper into uncharted territory. Following the discovery of the Dark Mirror's resting place, Darius's team presses forward toward the next ancient site they hope will reveal how to destroy it. The group, Darius, Zephyr, Lyra, and a handful of trusted allies, is weary but determined. The journey has taken them through harsh terrain, crumbling mountains, dense shadowy forests, and swamps thick with fog. The world itself seems darker, as if the architect's lingering presence is poisoning the land. As they march, tensions simmer within the group. The further they go, the more apparent it becomes that not everyone shares the same vision for the rebellion's future. Some argue that their primary focus should be rebuilding what the architects destroyed. Others insist that finding the Dark Mirror and putting an end to its power is their only hope for lasting peace. Darius, still haunted by the weight of leadership, tries to maintain unity, but even his most trusted allies begin to question his decisions. Nimra's role in the rebellion. Nimra, one of Darius's most trusted companions, is at the forefront of this descent. A skilled fighter and strategist, Nimra has been with the rebellion since the early days of the war. She was the one who helped Darius escape a critical ambush months before the Architect's downfall and led several key missions that turned the tide in their favor. Because of her steadfast loyalty and quick thinking, Darius considers her not only a valuable ally, but a close friend. He often relies on her counsel, and the group generally views her as a pillar of strength. She is charismatic, clever, and often the one to smooth over conflicts within the group. However, Nimra's recent behavior has raised some subtle alarms. She has become more guarded, more cautious. She asks questions about their mission that seem out of place, pushing Darius to explain himself more often than before. At first, Darius brushes off her change in demeanor as stress from the ongoing challenges, but as they approach the second ancient site, a sprawling temple overrun with strange, creeping vines and dark magical auras, her unease becomes harder to ignore. The second temple, a grim discovery. When they reach the ancient temple, the group finds it in even worse condition than the first. The architecture is jagged, unnatural, as though the building itself was warped by dark magic. Inside, they encounter more evidence of the architect's meddling: cryptic carvings on the walls, fragments of shattered artifacts, and residual energy that leaves everyone on edge. Zephyr warns them that the temple likely housed some of the earliest experiments that led to creation of the architect's dark magic. This is a place of origin for their power, and its corruption runs deep. As they delve deeper into the temple's halls, they find an ancient chamber filled with writings and diagrams. Zephyr translates some of the text, which details how the Dark Mirror was first used centuries ago. It was not merely a tool for domination. It was a bridge between realms, a channel for power so great that it could bend time and space. Destroying it will not be simple. It will require more than brute force. They need a key of sorts, something known as the Fong of Eclipsa, a legendary shard said to sever the mirror's connection to the otherworldly realm it draws upon. The group sets about searching the temple for clues to the Fong's whereabouts. As they do, the atmosphere grows tense. Lyra becomes increasingly suspicious of Nimra's behavior. Nimra's usually sharp focus seems distracted, and she lingers behind the group more than once, as if scouting a different path or inspecting areas that no one else deemed important. When Lyra mentions her concerns to Darius, he initially dismisses them, believing Nimra is simply being thorough. But Lyra's instincts are rarely wrong. The betrayal unfolds. The group is ambushed during their search. At first, it appears to be another trap laid by the architect's lingering forces. Shadowed figures and monstrous creatures spring forth from hidden alcoves, forcing the rebellion into a frantic fight. The team splits into smaller groups to fend off the attackers, with Darius and Lyra battling back-to-back. The fighting is fierce, and it quickly becomes clear that their opponents know the temple's layout well, giving them a strategic advantage. As the battle rages, Nimra suddenly vanishes, leaving her assigned group vulnerable. When the fighting finally subsides, Darius realizes that something is wrong. Not all of the attackers were strange beasts or nameless minions. Some were dressed in the rebellion's own colors, their faces hidden behind masks. The revelation sends a chill through the group. They were betrayed from within. Moments later, Nimra returns, accompanied by a squad of heavily armed mercenaries who immediately take Darius and his team captive. Nimra removes her hood and reveals that she has been working with the architect's remnants all along. She explains that she never truly believed in Darius's cause, seeing it as naive and doomed to fail. In her eyes, the architects, though flawed, had the power to bring order to the world, an order that Darius could never hope to achieve. She confesses that she has been feeding information to the architect survivors since the rebellion began, ensuring that the remnants of their power would remain intact. The aftermath of betrayal. The betrayal is devastating. Nimra's ambush results in heavy losses. Several of the rebellion's key fighters are killed, and much of their equipment and supplies are taken. Darius himself is nearly captured, but a desperate effort from Lyra and Zephyr allows him to escape. They flee the temple, battered and demoralized, leaving behind both their fallen comrades and the critical information they had just uncovered. Outside the temple, the surviving rebels regroup in a nearby cavern. Darius is visibly shaken. He trusted Nimra implicitly, and her betrayal cuts deeper than any wound. The group's morale is at its lowest point yet, and many begin to doubt Darius's ability to lead. If someone as close to him as Nimra could turn against them, who else might be working in secret? Whispers of mistrust ripple through the remaining fighters, and Darius must contend with the fallout. Lyra, though furious about the betrayal, tries to help Darius keep his focus. She tells him that the betrayal was not his fault, but Darius cannot shake his own guilt. He blames himself for not seeing the signs earlier, for not listening to Lyra's warnings, and for putting his team in harm's way. The weight of leadership bears down on him harder than ever, and for the first time, he begins to truly doubt whether he can finish what he started. Chapter 4. The Eclipse of Power. Opening scene. A new enemy emerges. The chapter opens with the aftermath of Nimra's betrayal weighing heavily on Darius. The rebellion is scattered and disheartened. Darius, now struggling with self-doubt, questions his ability to lead. His thoughts are dark, consumed by his past mistakes and the growing fear that his quest to destroy the architect's power may be pushing him closer to the very darkness he swore to overcome. However, there is no time to dwell on personal failures. Reports begin to filter in from different corners of the world. Strange happenings, powerful new factions emerging, and whispers of a group of sorcerers unlike any they've encountered before. These mages are called the Eclipse Cult, and they have begun to make their presence known, especially in the regions where the remnants of the architect's power still linger. The Eclipse Cult is unlike the architects in that they do not seek to reshape the world with a vast empire or corrupt a divine purpose. Instead, their goal is far more insidious: to control the very fabric of reality itself. The cult believes that the old world must be destroyed to make way for a new order, one where they hold the reins of absolute power. They seek to harness the lost knowledge of the architects, their dark magic, and the forbidden artifacts that remain scattered across the world. The cult's influence grows. Darius and his remaining allies, including Lyra and Zephyr, begin to investigate these new threats. They quickly learn that the Eclipse Cult is no mere group of power-hungry magicians. They are fanatical zealots who view themselves as the harbingers of a new age. The cult has already infiltrated several major cities and has begun to sway local rulers and influential figures to their cause. Their leader, Kalen, is a charismatic figure whose vision of a new world resonates with those tired of the old, broken systems of power. Kalen is described as a man of exceptional power and intellect. He is a master of both arcane and psychological manipulation. Through his influence, he has gathered followers from all walks of life: scholars, warriors, nobles, and criminals. He promises them power, stability, and a new world order. For the cult, the destruction of the old systems is just the first step. Their ultimate goal is to gain control over the ancient, lost knowledge of the architects, using it to reshape reality itself. Darius's first encounter with the Eclipse Cult. Darius's first direct confrontation with the Eclipse Cult happens when the group is led to a remote town where the cult has taken root. Local reports speak of an increasingly oppressive atmosphere, with whispers of strange rituals and inexplicable occurrences. People speak in fear of a righteous fire that has begun to spread to the town, turning it into a breeding ground for cult's influence. The inhabitants are either being converted or silenced, and the rebellion sympathizers are disappearing one by one. Upon arrival, Darius and his team are met with a scene of eerie calm. The streets are quiet, but the air feels thick with tension. After a series of covert investigations, the group uncovers a hidden temple beneath the town, a place where the Eclipse cult conducts their rituals. Inside, they find a series of arcane symbols that seem to resonate with the magic of the architects, as well as remnants of their ancient technologies. This site is no accident. It was clearly chosen because of its proximity to the old, forgotten energy of the architects' power. During their exploration, they are ambushed by a group of cultists, led by one of Kalen's lieutenants, a woman named Celine, who is both fierce in combat and deeply devoted to her leader's vision. The battle is intense, and Darius struggles to maintain control over the darkness within him. The cult's magic seems to corrupt the air itself, amplifying the rage and fear inside him, threatening to unleash his darker instincts. In the chaos, Darius manages to capture Celine, who reveals the true nature of the Eclipse cult's plans. They are attempting to awaken an ancient artifact, the Crown of Twilight, which will allow them to control the flow of magic across the world and even rewrite reality itself. The crown, she explains, is tied to the same dark magic the architects once wielded, and it is said to be hidden within the ruins of an ancient city buried beneath the sands of the desert. The path to the Crown of Twilight. Determined to prevent the cult from acquiring this power, Darius and his team set off for the desert ruins, hoping to beat the Eclipse cult to the artifact. Along the way, they are confronted with increasing signs of Kalen's influence. Towns where the scent is ruthlessly crushed, forests where dark magic poisons the land, and villages where people speak of a coming reckoning. It becomes clear that Kalen's reach is much broader than Darius originally thought. The Eclipse cult is not just a small, isolated group. It is a growing movement with the potential to bring about widespread chaos. As Darius travels, he begins to hear more about Kalen from those who have encountered him. He is described as a visionary, a man who can speak to people's deepest desires and fears, offering them a path to salvation through destruction. Darius finds himself unsettled by these descriptions. In many ways, Kalen sounds like a darker version of himself. The kind of leader Darius could become if he lost control of the power inside him. Zephyr warns Darius that the cult's power is unlike anything they've faced before. While the architects sought to dominate the world through raw force and dark rituals, the Eclipse cult seeks to unravel the very rules of reality, using manipulation and psychological control as much as magic. If they succeed in obtaining Crown of Twilight, they will be able to reshape the world into a new, twisted image, one where chaos reigns, and only they hold the keys to order, a dangerous reflection. Kalen's philosophy. As Darius nears the desert city, he is forced to confront the deeper philosophical conflict that Kalen represents. Through conversations with Celine and the growing influence of the Eclipse cult, Darius realizes that Kalen believes in the very same ideals Darius once grappled with, the idea that in order to create peace, the old systems must be destroyed and a new order must rise from ashes. But where Darius sought balance, Kalen seeks control. Where Darius believes in freedom, Kalen believes in subjugation. Darius begins to wonder if there is a dark, unavoidable truth behind Kalen philosophy. In some ways, Kalen is a mirror of Darius, a reflection of what Darius could become if he embraced the darkness inside him. The more he learns about Kalen's past, the more he sees a man who is not simply evil for sake of evil, but one who is driven by a profound disillusionment with the world's inability to change. Kalen's rise to power was built on the failure of the old systems that Darius himself has fought against. The desert ruins and the Crown of Twilight. Upon reaching the ancient desert city, Darius's team discovers the ruins buried beneath layers of sand. The city, once a great center of knowledge, is now little more than a crumbling shell, its streets long eroded by time. But deep within the heart of the ruins lies the Crown of Twilight, an artifact of unimaginable power that the Eclipse cult is desperate to control. It is said to be located in a hidden chamber, guarded by traps and the spirits of those who perish in the city's final days. The chapter ends with Darius and his team descending into the ruins, fully aware of the danger ahead. As they enter the chamber where the crown is hidden, they are confronted by an eerie silence. The air is thick with the magic of the architects, and strange whispers seem to emanate from the walls. Darius feels the power of the crown calling to him, beckoning him closer, and he knows that he must resist its pull at all costs. As they approach the artifact, Kalen's voice echoes through the chamber. "You can try to stop me, Darius, but the world will not be saved by the old ways. The future is mine to shape, just as it was always meant to be. Chapter 5, Allies in the Shadows. Opening scene, a world in fragmented chaos. The chapter begins in the aftermath of the confrontation with the Eclipse cult in the desert ruins, with the rebellion fractured and Darius's group having lost valuable ground. They have narrowly escaped with their lives, but the world around them is collapsing in on itself. Whispers of the cult's growing power spread across the continent, and Darius knows that if they don't act quickly, it may be too late. Realizing that they cannot defeat Kalen and the cult alone, Darius begins searching for new allies. But the world has changed since the fall of the Architects. Old alliances have crumbled, kingdoms have fallen, and many of the greatest powers have been scattered or destroyed by the Architects' past actions. The rebellion's cause, though noble, has become one of desperation, and the people who could help them are now either reclusive, exiled, or broken. The journey to the Forgotten Lands. Darius embarks on a perilous journey across uncharted lands, regions that have been untouched by the war for centuries. These places are shrouded in myth and mystery, often referred to as the Forgotten Lands because of their isolation from the rest of the world. The region is dangerous, known for its twisted terrain and remnants of ancient power. There, Darius hopes to find someone who can turn the tide in their favor, an ally with both the strength and the will to help. Lyra, Zephyr, and a few trusted soldiers accompany Darius, but the journey tests them in ways they did not expect. They encounter dense, unwelcoming forests, treacherous mountain ranges, and abandoned villages where the ghosts of the past seem to linger. As they travel, Darius senses a growing weight of the task ahead. The world feels heavier, darker, and more fragile than ever. During their travels, Darius begins to notice how Lyra's demeanor has changed. She is more distant, caught up in her thoughts, often gazing into the horizon as if searching for something she has lost. Darius doesn't press her, knowing that her own past is a labyrinth of pain and sacrifice. He hopes that the journey ahead may help her find some peace, but the rebellion's increasingly dire situation pulls his focus away. The exiled prince, Idris of Ashale. After days of travel, Darius's group finally reaches the isolated kingdom of Ashale, an ancient land that once stood as a beacon of prosperity before it was decimated by the Architects. The kingdom is now little more than a shadow of its former self, with only a small remnant of the royal family surviving. Among them is Prince Idris, a once heroic figure who now lives in exile, consumed by a singular drive: vengeance against the Architects for the destruction of his people. Idris is a man scarred by loss. He was a young prince when his kingdom was razed to the ground, and the Architects were the architects, no pun intended, of his tragedy. In his grief and rage, he has spent the years since that fateful day in isolation, honing his skills and seeking revenge on any remnants of the Architect's empire. To him, the rebellion's cause seemed secondary to his own thirst for justice. Peace, or working together to rebuild, holds little interest to him. He wants to see the Architects and their allies suffer as his people did. Darius, aware that Idris holds the key to gaining powerful support, approaches him with caution. Idris's bitterness and anger are palpable. He is a man shaped by loss, and every moment spent in the ruins of his kingdom has only deepened his resolve to destroy those who wronged him. The prince initially refuses Darius's offer, seeing no reason to fight the Eclipse cult when he has his own vendetta against the Architect's remnants. He views Darius as an idealist, unwilling to face the harsh truths of the world, the conflict of ideals. Darius understands Idris's anger all too well, but he also knows that vengeance alone cannot save the world. In a tense conversation by the ruins of Ashale, Darius tries to reason with Idris, explaining that while they share a common enemy in the cult, only by uniting their forces can they stop the coming storm. Darius's plea is not just about strategic advantage. It's about saving what little remains of their world. He argues that if they continue down the path of vengeance, they will only become like the very enemies they seek to defeat. "I understand your pain, Prince," Darius says, his voice tinged with the weight of his own scars. "But I've learned that revenge doesn't rebuild what was lost. It only leaves you empty. The Architects destroyed your kingdom, but the cult will destroy us all if we don't stand together." Idris's eyes burn with the fury of a man who has nothing left to lose. He is silent for a long moment before responding, "I don't need your sympathy, Darius. I don't need your idealism. What I need is power, and I'll stop at nothing to get it. Despite their differences, Darius doesn't give up. He offers Idris a chance to lead a new future, to help bring down the Eclipse cult and avenge the dead by ensuring that no one else suffers the same fate. Idris, still torn by the burning need for vengeance, is unwilling to forgive or forget, but he knows that the war they're fighting is bigger than his personal grudge. Reluctantly, he agrees to join forces, but on his terms. He will fight for revenge against the Architect's remnants, but only if he gets to decide how that revenge is executed. Darius, knowing this is the best deal he can get, accepts the terms, though it will lead to future tensions within the rebellion, Lyra's internal struggle. While Darius tries to forge an alliance with Idris, Lyra's inner turmoil grows. Haunted by her past and the choices she has made, Lyra finds herself torn between her loyalty to Darius and her own desire for redemption. Throughout the journey, her thoughts have been preoccupied with her past. Her role as a soldier in the Architect-led armies, the blood she's spilled, and the lives she's destroyed. Every time she sees the devastation that the Architects left in their wake, she feels a deeper sense of guilt and self-loathing. Lyra's loyalty to Darius has always been steadfast, but as they move closer to their goal, she begins to question whether she truly deserves to be part of this cause. The rebellion was never her dream. It was his. Darius has led them through impossible odds, but Lyra wonders if she is simply following him because she has nowhere else to go. Can she really atone for her past? Is she truly a force for good, or just another broken weapon? Her doubts come to a head when she overhears a conversation between Darius and Zephyr. Darius confides in Zephyr about the pressure he feels in his leadership, how he fears that the rebellion will fail, and that he will lose control to the darkness inside him. Lyra, listening from the shadows, feels a pang of guilt. She wants to help him, but she's unsure whether she's truly capable of redemption or whether she's simply a ticking time bomb waiting to detonate. Idris's integration into the rebellion. Idris's decision to join the rebellion is a crucial turning point for the group, but it comes with its own set of challenges. His methods are brutal, and his approach to warfare is far more unforgiving than Darius's. While Darius seeks to build alliances and preserve peace, Idris believes in decisive action, and he often clashes with the more idealistic members of the rebellion. He sees the world through the lens of vengeance and power, and his presence drives a wedge between Darius and Lyra. Idris's training and experience make him a formidable ally, but his thirst for vengeance leads him to take risks that jeopardize the entire group. His desire to strike at the cult with unrelenting force puts them in dangerous situations more than once. The rebellion's leaders begin to worry that Idris's personal vendetta could lead them into traps or make them lose sight of their true goal. Closing scene. A path forward, but at what cost? The chapter ends with Darius, Idris, Lyra, and Zephyr standing atop a cliff overlooking a vast, storm-ridden battlefield. The sky is heavy with dark clouds, and the wind howls as it whips through the ruins of the world. Darius looks at his new ally, Idris, standing tall and resolute, eyes burning with the desire for revenge. He knows that the path ahead will be fraught with conflict, but he also knows that the rebellion has gained a powerful ally in the prince's strength. Yet, as the storm clouds gather on the horizon, Darius feels a gnawing uncertainty deep within. The world may be on the brink of collapse, but the rebellion's unity is fragile, and the personal demons of those involved may prove to be just as dangerous as the external threats they face. As Darius watches the storm roll in, Lyra steps beside him. She doesn't say a word but places her hand gently on his shoulder, offering silent comfort. Together, they look toward the horizon, unsure what the future holds, but resolved to face it, no matter the cost. Chapter 6. The Heart of the Eclipse. Opening scene. The approach to the Eclipse Citadel. The chapter opens with Darius, Idris, Lyra, Zephyr, and a handful of trusted allies standing before the heart of the Eclipse cult stronghold, an imposing citadel known as Obsidian Spire. The towering structure, made of black stone and shrouded in mist, looms ominously against a darkened sky. It sits at the center of the cult's power, a place where time seems to bend, and the air is thick with the oppressive weight of forbidden magic. The Citadel's vast labyrinthine corridors house the true source of the cult's influence, the Black Mirror. Darius has known for some time that the Black Mirror is the key to the Eclipse cult's power. What he didn't understand until now is that the mirror is far more than a simple artifact. It's a conduit to the very forces that shape the architect's rise and fall. The mirror, a dark reflection of the world, taps into ancient magic so potent that it has the ability to manipulate time, space, and even reality itself. Whoever controls it can reshape the world to their will. Their journey to the spire has been fraught with peril. Hidden traps, mind-bending illusions, and cultists who seem to anticipate their every move. But now, standing on the precipice of the cult's fortress, Darius knows that this is the final battleground. Inside those walls lies the potential to either destroy or remake the world itself. The cult's heartbeat, Kalen's vision. As they infiltrate the citadel, Darius and his team encounter pockets of intense resistance. The cultists seem almost supernatural in their devotion, willing to sacrifice their lives without hesitation to protect the Black Mirror. They are not just zealots. They are warriors transformed by the mirror's power, their minds twisted and shaped by its dark influence. Many of them are former leaders, nobles, and scholars who have been consumed by Kalen's vision. Darius and Idris lead the charge, but the tension between them is palpable. Idris' single-minded thirst for vengeance pushes him forward without care for the rebellion's long-term goals, while Darius constantly urges restraint. The internal conflict between them becomes more evident as they approach the heart of the citadel. During their march through the citadel, the group comes across a haunting chamber filled with strange murals, images of the architects and their dark rituals, twisted representations of reality, and scenes that seem to distort the very fabric of time. As Darius stares at the murals, something in the air shifts. His vision begins to blur, and he catches a glimpse of an ancient figure, one that looks eerily familiar. Darius' connection to the mirror. The visions become more intense as Darius steps closer to the Black Mirror, which is located at the center of the citadel's inner sanctum. As they reach the heart of the fortress, Darius' connection to the mirror deepens. The artifact seems to resonate with him, pulling at the darkness within. He begins to have fleeting visions of his own past, flashbacks to his ancestors, the architects of the architects themselves, who once wielded a mirror to shape reality and bind the world with their dark magic. In these visions, Darius sees his bloodline, the rulers who betrayed their people and harnessed the mirror's power for conquest. His family was not just complicit in the rise of the architects, they were among their creators. The mirror had been passed down through generations, each one corrupted by its allure until final fracture. His father's allegiance to the architects and the eventual downfall of their bloodline. Darius realizes that the mirror is not just a tool for Kalen. It is his heritage, a direct link to the dark legacy of the architects. The power within the Black Mirror calls to him, a siren song urging him to claim it and rewrite the past, to undo the damage done by his ancestors, and even reshape the future. But this revelation comes at a cost. The more he delves into the mirror's power, the more he feels himself losing touch with the man he once was. Kalen's revelation. At last, Darius and his team reach the Black Mirror, a massive, obsidian structure at the heart of the sanctum. The room is filled with an otherworldly glow, casting long shadows against the walls. Standing before the mirror is Kalen, the leader of the Eclipse cult, his face bathed in the mirror's dark light. He is no longer the charismatic figure Darius met in the desert. The mirror has warped him, bending his form and mind, turning him into something inhuman. His eyes glow in eerie intensity, and his voice resonates with power. "Welcome, Darius," Kalen says, his tone almost affectionate. "I've been waiting for you. I knew you'd come for in the end, just as I knew you'd come for me. After all, the Black Mirror is yours by right, isn't it?" Darius steps forward, his grip tightening on the hilt of his sword. "You've twisted everything. The architects were monsters, and you're no different. You're trying to bring about a new world, but at what cost? A world ruled by darkness." Kalen smiles coldly. "A new world, yes, but not one ruled by darkness. One of order, a world where all things are possible. And you, Darius, are the key to unlocking that future. You are not simply a resistance leader. You are the bloodline of the architects. You were born for this. You are the one who will wield the mirror and remake the world." Darius is struck by the truth in Kalen's words. He is the last of the architects, the heir to the power they wielded, the same power that created the mirror. But Darius has always rejected that power. He's always fought against it. Yet, Standing here in the heart of the Eclipse cult stronghold, Darius feels the mirror's power calling to him, tempting him to seize control, to finally put an end to the Architect's legacy once and for all. The battle for the mirror. What follows is an epic confrontation. Kalen, now fully transformed by the mirror's power, becomes a terrifying force of nature. His body shifts and warps as the mirror amplifies his power, and he becomes something more than human, an entity of pure force, a reflection of the mirror itself. The battle between Kalen and Darius is not just physical, but psychological. Kalen knows that Darius is vulnerable. He is the heir to the Architect's power, and all he needs to do is convince him to claim the mirror for himself. As they fight, Kalen reveals the true cost of using the Black Mirror. You think you can destroy it, Darius? You think you can free the world from this power? Kalen sneers. You would undo what your bloodline created, but every action has a cost. You cannot destroy the mirror without destroying yourself, the power within you, the darkness you've been fighting. It's not an enemy, Darius. It's you. You are the last of the Architects. This power is your birthright. Take it. Darius feels the weight of Kalen's words as the battle rages on. The mirror's power amplifies his deepest fears and desires, filling him with visions of what could be. He sees a world remade in his image, a world where he can undo his ancestors' mistakes, where he can save those he's lost, and where peace can be achieved through sheer will. But with each vision, Darius also sees a terrible cost: the collapse of reality, the destruction of everything he holds dear. The mirror offers him the chance to rewrite the world, but at the price of his soul. The climax, the choice. At the height of their battle, Darius is forced to make an impossible choice. The mirror, now fully activated, creates a rift in the fabric of time and space, warping reality itself. The Citadel trembles as the power of the Black Mirror threatens to tear the world apart. Kalen, weakened but still dangerous, stands before him, urging him to seize the mirror and fulfill his destiny as the heir to the Architects. Darius, now standing at the edge of the mirror, feels the intense pull of its power. The darkness inside him rises, threatening to consume him completely. He can feel the bloodline within him, the Architect's legacy, calling out, urging him to embrace it. And yet, there's a part of him that knows the truth. Embracing the mirror's power would mean becoming the very thing he has fought against. In a final act of defiance, Darius makes his choice. He plunges his sword into the mirror, shattering its surface. The resulting explosion of dark energy sends shockwaves through the Citadel, collapsing the structure and tearing apart the magic that held it together. Time itself seems to unravel, and reality fractures around them. As the dust settles, the mirror lies broken, its power dissipated, its magic no longer able to control the world. Kalen, consumed by the mirror's magic, is vanquished, his body disintegrating into the ether. The Citadel crumbles, and the rebellion's forces, those who survive the assault, begin to retreat from the collapsing fortress. The cost of victory. As Darius stands amid the ruins of the Citadel, the weight of his choice sinks in. The Black Mirror is destroyed, but the world has been irrevocably changed. Darius knows that the power it once wielded is gone, but he also understands that it has paid a great cost. The mirror was more than just an artifact. It was the last link to the Architect's legacy, and in destroying it, Darius has severed his connection to that dark past. But at what cost? Lyra approaches him, her expression unreadable. She's seen the struggle in his eyes, and she knows that while the battle is won, the war for Darius' soul is far from over. The chapter ends with Darius looking out over the ruins of the Citadel, the first rays of dawn breaking through the storm clouds. He has chosen the path of destruction, but now he must find a way to rebuild, not just the world, but himself. Chapter 7, Shattered Bonds. Opening scene, the rebellion in turmoil. The chapter opens with a tense atmosphere hanging over the rebellion's camp. The aftermath of the destruction of the Black Mirror has left Darius and his allies struggling to cope with the ramifications of their choices. Despite the destruction of the mirror, the world is still on the brink of collapse, and the rebellion is more divided than ever. Darius stands at the edge of the camp, gazing at the horizon. The ruins of the Eclipse Citadel loom behind him, a stark reminder of their victory and the cost exacted. But it's not just the Citadel that's in ruins. The rebellion itself is beginning to fracture. The discovery of the Black Mirror, its power, and the revelations it brought have created a schism among the leaders. A rift has formed between those who want to use the mirror's power to reshape the world, and those who believe it must be destroyed at all costs. The division, Zephyr and Lyra at odds. Zephyr, ever the pragmatist, believes that Darius should use the mirror's remnants to forge a new world order. We've seen what the mirror can do, Zephyr argues. It's a tool of unimaginable power. We can't waste it. If we want to ensure peace, if we want to prevent the rise of another tyrant, we need to control it. We need to use it to shape the world as we see fit. For Zephyr, this is a matter of cold logic. He sees the mirror as a means to an end, an unshakable foundation for the future. He argues that Darius is the perfect candidate to wield this power, given his connection to the architect's bloodline. You can't keep fighting this war forever, Zephyr insists. Eventually, someone will rise to take control of that power. It might as well be us. But Lyra, ever the voice of caution and moral clarity, vehemently disagrees. Power like that is never meant to be controlled, she counters. We've seen what it does. It corrupts. It destroys everything in its path. Darius, I know you're torn, but you can't use it. If you do, you'll become what you fought against. Lyra's fear stems from her own past. She knows firsthand how seductive power can be, how it can pull someone into the darkness, even when they have the best of intentions. Her concern is not just for Darius' soul, but for the soul of the world itself. We can't let the mirror's magic poison us, Darius. We need to destroy it, and we need to walk away. If we compromise on this, we risk becoming the very monsters we've been fighting. Darius' struggle, torn between two visions. Darius, caught between Zephyr's pragmatism and Lyra's morality, is consumed by doubt. The mirror's allure still lingers within him, tempting him with the promise of ultimate control. He knows that if he were to embrace its power, he could put an end to the conflict and ensure peace, and create a world free of the chaos that has consumed it for centuries. But he also understands that doing so would mean giving in to the darkness within him, relinquishing the very redemption he's been fighting for. In his private moments, Darius grapples with his own fears. He recalls the haunting vision of the architect's past, of the world they created with the mirror's power, and the destruction they wrought in their wake. Can he really control this power without losing himself? Is there any path forward that doesn't involve becoming a new tyrant? His doubts are further compounded by the growing tension within the rebellion. As the group splinters, some members side with Zephyr, believing that the mirror's power is too important to ignore, while others align with Lyra, refusing to let it taint them. The argument, trust and leadership. As tensions come to a head, a heated argument erupts among the rebellion's leaders. Zephyr and Lyra stand on opposite sides, their voices raised as they argue in front of the rest of the group. The rebellion's unity is on the verge of collapse. You're naive, Lyra, Zephyr says, his eyes hardening. We can't afford ideals. The world is fractured. If we don't seize control, someone else will. Do you think Kalen was the last of them? Do you think the Eclipse cult is the only power that will rise from the ashes? Lyra steps forward, her voice low but filled with conviction. And what will we become if we take that path, Zephyr? We're already fighting the remnants of the architect's legacy. You're talking about wielding the same kind of power that twisted them in the first place. We'll never break the cycle of violence if we start thinking like them. The argument escalates as others start to weigh in, and the division becomes clearer. Some of Darius' allies, like Idris, begin to lean toward Zephyr's viewpoint. After all, Idris has always been driven by a desire for vengeance, and the idea of using the mirror's power to secure a lasting peace appeals to him. But others, like Rhea, a former scholar turned warrior, side with Lyra, fearing the long-term consequences of embracing such power. Darius, overwhelmed by the discord, steps forward, attempting to calm the group. We're falling apart, he says, his voice heavy with the weight of leadership. The rebellion isn't about power. It's about redemption. It's about fighting for something better. But I can't do this alone. Lyra's plea, a choice for the future. Lyra, seeing Darius' internal conflict, approaches him in private later that night. She places a hand on his shoulder, her voice soft but filled with urgency. Darius, I know you're torn. I know the weight of this decision is heavy on you, but listen to me. Power like that, it will consume you. It will turn you into something you're not. You're already a better man than anyone I know. You don't need the mirror to bring peace to this world. You need to stay true to yourself." Her words resonate with him, but Darius is still uncertain. The temptation to wield the mirror's power is strong. Could he really walk away from it? Could he lead the rebellion without it? The pressure mounts as the rebellion's unity unravels further, and Darius knows he must make a choice soon. A moment of crisis, the shattering of trust. The rebellion's fragility reaches its breaking point when betrayal is uncovered. One of their own, a trusted advisor named Meles, is revealed to have been working with Zephyr in secret, pushing for the mirror's use to create a new world order. While Meles' motives were not driven by the same desire for power as Zephyr's, it becomes clear that his vision for the future had diverged from rebellion's. He believed that with the mirror's power, they could create a peaceful society, but one ruled with an iron fist. Darius is forced to confront the depths of the rebellion's disunity. His allies are divided, and the trust that once bound them together is now broken. Meles' betrayal is the tipping point. What was once a unified front now appears to be teetering on the edge of collapse, and Darius realizes that the road ahead will not be easy. Cliffhanger ending, a divided future. As Darius confronts a fallout from Meles' betrayal, he realizes that the rebellion is fractured beyond repair. Zephyr's faction has grown stronger, and his ideology is spreading among the ranks, while Lyra's faction, though steadfast, is losing ground. Darius now faces a painful decision. He must either take control of the rebellion and use the mirror's power to unite the fractured groups, or he must destroy it once and for all, forsaking the chance for ultimate power. As the chapter ends, Darius stands alone on the edge of the camp, staring out at the burning horizon. The future is uncertain, and the rebellion is hanging by a thread. His decision could either save or doom them all. Chapter 8, The Last Choice. Opening scene, the calm before the storm. The chapter begins in the aftermath of the rebellion's latest victory against the Eclipse cult, but the relief is short-lived. The cult is regrouping, preparing for a final assault on the rebellion's stronghold. Darius and his allies know that their time is running out. The stakes have never been higher. As the rebellion fortifies its position, Darius finds himself once again facing the Black Mirror. The artifact, which had been locked away in the deepest vault of their camp, now calls to him. The temptation is irresistible. The mirror offers the power to crush the Eclipse cult once and for all, to reshape the world according to his vision. Yet, Darius cannot shake the haunting memories of what it cost him to destroy the first mirror and sever the architect's legacy. Still, the possibility of wielding the mirror's power, unlike anything else in the world, fills him with a growing hunger. It promises victory, the kind that will ensure peace, but at the risk of losing everything he has fought to become. Darius's inner conflict. Throughout the chapter, Darius's internal battle is the focal point. He reflects on his journey so far, the wars, the sacrifices, the betrayals, and the ongoing pull of the mirror's dark promise. He remembers the words of his father, the leader of the architects, who once told him, "Power is the only truth. It is the key to shaping the world, to shaping your destiny." But Darius knows that embracing this truth means accepting tyranny, domination, and a world built on fear. The more he thinks about it, the more he understands the weight of his decisions. Power alone will not save the world. Only compassion and trust can rebuild it. Still, the question looms large. Can he resist the lure of absolute power when it's within his grasp? The rebellion needs him to lead them to victory, and the mirror is the only way to ensure they succeed. The leaders of the rebellion are growing impatient, uncertain the path forward, and Darius feels the pressure mounting. The Black Mirror's temptation. One evening, while the camp is settling down for the night, Darius finds himself alone in the chamber that houses the Black Mirror. Its cold surface glows with a faint, hypnotic light, drawing him closer. He remembers how it once showed him the darkest potential of his bloodline, how it whispered promises of power, wealth, and control. As Darius stands before it, his reflection in the mirror shifts, showing him as a tyrant, ruthless, unmoving, and unfeeling. The vision speaks to his deepest fears and desires. "You are your father's son," the mirror whispers. The blood of the architects flows through you. Power is your birthright. Take it. Take what you deserve. But as he gazes deeper, the reflection begins to distort. He sees his friends, Lyra, Zephyr, Rhea, and the others, all staring at it with expressions of fear and disappointment. He sees himself turning away from them, growing more distant and unrecognizable with each passing day. The vision warns him that the cost of wielding such power is not just the world, it's himself. The mirror then offers him a vision of the rebellion victorious, with Darius standing at his helm, a ruler feared and adored. But there is no joy in his eyes, only a hollow emptiness, a man who has sacrificed everything for power. Lyra's plea. Later that evening, Lyra finds Darius in the chamber. She knows he's been struggling with the mirror's temptation and the burden of leadership. She approaches him cautiously, her voice soft but firm. "You're not alone in this, Darius," she says. "I know you feel the weight of everything. The world on your shoulders, the rebellion looking to you for answers. But power like that, it's not who you are. You can't become what you fear most. You've already proven what kind of leader you are. You've already sacrificed so much for this cause. Don't let the mirror take that from you." Her words resonate with Darius, but they do little to quell the fire burning within him. He's so close to victory, so close to having the power to make everything right. But in his heart, he knows she's right. True leadership has never been about control. It's been about sacrifice, about standing for something greater than oneself, about inspiring trust, not fear. Lyra's plea forces Darius to confront the reality of his choices. He realizes that, in this moment, he isn't just fighting the Eclipse cult, he's fighting himself. The true enemy is not the cult. It's the darkness within him that threatens to take control. The rebellion at a crossroads. Meanwhile, the rebellion's leaders grow more anxious. Zephyr, driven by his pragmatic view of the world, argues that they cannot win without the mirror's power. He suggests that Darius's hesitance is a weakness they cannot afford. "We've fought too hard for too long to throw it all away," Zephyr insists. "The mirror will give us the strength we need. We can end this once and for all. We'll rebuild the world in our image. It's the only way." On the other hand, Rhea and the other rebels who've aligned with Lyra argue that using the mirror will make them no better than the architects they've been fighting. They fear that Darius, once he accepts its power, will lose the very essence of what makes him a leader worth following. Darius, torn between the opposing voices in his camp, knows that the time to decide has come. The cult is nearly at their gates, and their rebellion could crumble in the next few days. The final choice. In the dead of night, as the rebellion prepares for battle, Darius retreats to the chamber once more. The mirror is calling to him, its dark power like an anchor in his soul. For a moment, Darius considers embracing it, to seize the power, destroy the cult, and finally end the war. He imagines a world he could create, a world where he controls everything, where peace is ensured through absolute power. But then he recalls everything he's learned. He remembers his father's twisted vision of control, the pain and suffering it caused, and the very reason he started this fight in the first place. It's then that Darius makes his decision. In a decisive moment, Darius turns away from the mirror. He knows what must be done. With his bare hands, he shatters the mirror, its fragments scattering into 1,000 pieces. As the glass shatters, the darkness within him recedes, leaving behind a sense of clarity and peace. He knows that he has made the right choice, even though the rebellion's victory is no longer assured. The rebellion's final test. As Darius steps away from the mirror's shattered remains, he feels a renewed sense of purpose. The rebellion is not about power. It's about people, trust, and sacrifice. It's about creating a future without the chains of fear and domination. But Darius also knows that the final battle is at hand. The Eclipse cult, furious at the loss of the mirror's power, launches their final attack on the rebellion's stronghold. With the mirror destroyed, Darius must now lead his people without the weapon that could have guaranteed their success. The true test of leadership begins. Cliffhanger ending. The chapter ends with a rebellion in the midst of battle. Darius, now free from the mirror's influence, leads his forces into the fray. But the Eclipse cult is relentless, and their final assault is unlike anything the rebellion has faced before. As Darius charges into battle, he realizes that this may be the true test of his leadership, the moment when he either rises to become the leader the world needs or falls prey to the darkness once again. Chapter 9, The Breaking Point. Opening scene, The Price of Destruction. The chapter opens with the immediate aftermath of Darius's decision to destroy the Black Mirror. He stands in the ruins of the chamber, its shattered pieces scattered across the floor. The air is thick with the residual magic that once emanated from the mirror. Darius feels the weight of his decision pressing down on him. He's made the right choice, but at what cost? The destruction of the mirror causes a violent tremor to ripple through the ground, as if the very world itself is reacting to the severing of its power. The rebellion stronghold, once a sanctuary, now feels fragile and vulnerable. An eerie silence follows the destruction, and for a moment, Darius wonders if the world will ever be the same again. However, that silence is shattered when a distant rumble shakes the earth, followed by a violent wind. The sky darkens unnaturally, and black clouds swirl overhead, as though the heavens themselves are being torn apart. Thunder cracks in the distance, but it's not the usual storm. It's something far more unnatural, the world unraveling. Within moments, the winds begin to spiral into violent, uncontrollable storms. Lightning strikes the earth with a deafening crack, and the storm cloud becomes thick and oppressive, spreading rapidly across the entire land. As the storm intensifies, strange creatures, monstrous, twisted beings made of shadow and elemental energy, emerge from the rift in the fabric of reality. They surge forward, wreaking havoc upon the rebellion's camp and the surrounding lands. The air is thick with magic, the very magic that had been bound to the Black Mirror. As the mirror shattered, it released a massive surge of energy that destabilized the flow of magic across the world. This eruption of power is tearing open rifts in reality, allowing monstrous beings and destructive storms to manifest everywhere. Darius watches in horror as his decision has unleashed a far greater disaster than he could have ever imagined. The wild magic is not just causing destruction, it's warping the very essence of the world, unraveling the natural order. With each passing moment, the storms grow more violent and the creatures more dangerous. The destruction is spreading far beyond the rebellion's stronghold, the rebellion on the run. As the rebellion scrambles to defend themselves from the creatures and the increasingly unstable storms, Darius realizes the full scope of the catastrophe. The energy released by the mirror's destruction is so volatile that it's creating rifts in space-time, causing reality to warp. Entire towns have been swallowed by the storms, while villages disappear into the swirling chaos. Some rebels are killed by the magical storms, while others are consumed by the creatures spawned from the rifts. In the chaos, Lyra, Zephyr, and the other leaders of the rebellion rally their forces, trying to stem the tide of destruction. But it's clear that the battle has shifted. This isn't a war against the Eclipse cult anymore. The war has become a fight for survival against forces that have no origin and no clear purpose. The rebellion, once unified by a common cause, is now forced into survival mode. The creatures ravaging the land are unlike any enemy they've faced before. They're born of the very magic that once powered the Architect's empire, now gone wild and uncontrollable. A desperate race against time. Darius, Lyra, Zephyr, and the rebellion's remaining leaders meet in a war council. They realize that if they don't act quickly, the storms and monsters will consume the entire world. They discuss what might have caused this unprecedented chaos. The destabilization of magic itself. The Black Mirror had been a focal point of the Architect's magic, the source of their power. In destroying it, Darius didn't just remove a dangerous artifact. He destabilized the balance of magic across the world. This is no longer about defeating the Eclipse cult. Lyra says, her voice grim. The very world is coming apart. We have to stop this before it's too late. Zephyr, who once argued for using the mirror's power for their own purposes, now agrees that something far worse is at stake. We must find a way to reverse the damage before the entire fabric of magic unravels. If the storms and creatures continue to spread like this, there will be nothing left to save. The rebellion is at a crossroads. There is no easy solution, and every decision feels like it could lead to the world's annihilation. Darius must now find a way to undo the damage he's caused. If such a thing is even possible, the dark truth revealed. In the midst of the chaos, Darius and his allies uncover a startling revelation. The Black Mirror wasn't just a source of power for the architects. It was a prison, a containment vessel that held the magic of the architects' lost civilization in check. When the mirror shattered, it didn't just release raw energy. It released the very magic that had been suppressed for centuries. The storm, the monsters, the rifts in space and time, they were all the result of the mirror's destruction, breaking the barrier that contained this ancient, forbidden magic. The ancient texts they had uncovered long ago in the ruins of the architect's city had hinted at the mirror's true purpose. But Darius had never fully understood its significance. Now he knows. Destroying the mirror didn't just sever the architect's legacy. It destabilized the entire magical system that had kept the world in balance. This revelation shatters Darius's faith in his ability to control the future. The consequences of his actions go far beyond anything he had imagined, and the rebellion's hope for a better world now seems impossible. A terrifying vision, a world on the brink. As Darius wrestles with his guilt, he is struck by a terrifying vision, the end of the world. The storm clouds are endless, the sky torn open, and monstrous creatures roam the earth, consuming everything in their path. He sees Lyra, Zephyr, and the others, but they are powerless to stop the destruction. The vision ends with Darius standing alone in a barren wasteland, the last living soul in a world that had been consumed by the chaos he unleashed. Darius wakes in the vision, his heart pounding in his chest. He knows that the end is near, and if they don't act quickly, the vision will become a reality. He feels the weight of his decision more than ever now. He's not just fighting the architects anymore, or the cult. He's fighting the very forces of destruction that he has unwittingly set loose. The search for a solution, the way forward. With the clock ticking, the rebellion scrambles to find a solution. Rhea, the scholar turned warrior, suggests searching for an ancient site that may hold the key to reversing the damage. According to the texts they found, there are lost temples hidden throughout the world, places where the architects once bound and sealed away their most dangerous magic. If they can find one of these temples, perhaps they can learn how to contain the wild magic that is tearing the world apart. Darius and his closest allies, Lyra, Zephyr, Rhea, and Idris, set out on a perilous journey to find the nearest of these temples. The world is shifting, and every step is fraught with danger. As they travel, they encounter more monstrous creatures and witness firsthand the devastation wrought by the storms. Entire cities are wiped out, and the rebellion's forces are scattered. A final confrontation. As Darius and his group approach the temple, they are ambushed by a new breed of creature, one born directly from the chaotic magic unleashed by the mirror. This creature is a harbinger of the final reckoning, a being of pure destructive energy that seems impervious to their weapons. In the ensuing battle, the group struggles to hold their ground. The creature's power is overwhelming, and it begins to tear into the rebellion's forces, leaving destruction in its wake. The battle is a desperate struggle for survival, and it's clear that they may not be able to stop the creature without a greater sacrifice. Darius faces the creature head-on, drawing upon the last remnants of his inner strength. He fights with everything he has, but it becomes apparent that the only way to defeat this force of chaos is to sacrifice something even more precious. Cliffhanger ending. As Darius readies himself for the final blow, he is struck by a sudden realization. The only way to stop the creature and contain the magic is to channel the chaotic energy into himself. To do so, he must give up the last vestiges of his humanity and allow the storm's magic to consume him. Darius knows that in doing so, he will become something more, and yet something less. He will either be the savior who saves the world or the harbinger of its end. The chapter ends with Darius stepping forward, ready to make the ultimate sacrifice, an act that will determine the fate of the world. As he raises his sword, he faces an uncertain future, knowing that the choice he makes here will change everything. Chapter 10, A World Reborn. Opening scene, the calm after the storm. The chapter begins with an eerie silence that has settled over the battlefield. The last remnants of the destructive storm have faded, and the world feels eerily still. The land is scarred, the sky is still heavy with the remnants of chaotic magic, and the air is thick with the weight of loss. What once seemed like a world on the brink of total annihilation now stands at a precipice, a fragile balance between destruction and the possibility of a new beginning. Darius stands at the edge of a ruined city, looking out over the vast, broken landscape. His face is grim, worn with the weight of all he has endured. His eyes are distant, haunted by the price of the choices he made and the cost of the rebellion's victory. The very earth beneath his feet still shivers with the volatile magic that had been unleashed, uncontrollable and uncontained. But for now, there is a fragile peace. He knows, however, that this peace is only temporary. The damage done to the world is vast, and it will take more than just strength to restore it. It will require time, sacrifice, and a willingness to rebuild from the very foundations of what has been lost. The aftermath, rebuilding the broken world. With the black mirror shattered, the rebellion's immediate victory is bittersweet. While the threat of the Eclipse cult and the Architect's power has been eliminated, the cost of that victory has been far greater than anyone could have anticipated. The magic once harnessed by the Architects now runs wild and uncontrollable across the land. Entire regions are left devastated, with cities reduced to ruins and entire ecosystems disrupted. The magic that once held the world together now threatens to tear it apart. Darius, now fully aware of the burden of his decisions, understands that his role as a leader is far from over. It's not enough to defeat the old enemies. The true challenge lies in confronting the deep divisions and mistrust that exist in the world. The rebellion, once united under a common cause, now faces its own fractures. The leaders, warriors, and citizens of the world are unsure of how to proceed after the mirror's destruction. There are those who want to harness the remaining wild magic. Some who believe that this new, unstable world offers an opportunity to reshape the world into a new order, and others who want to return to a simpler time before the Architects' rule. The first challenge Darius faces is reuniting the scattered factions. Old alliances have broken down, and old wounds have reopened. The rebellion's leadership is divided. Lyra wants to move forward with a more compassionate, healing approach, while Zephyr, whose pragmatism has served the rebellion well, argues that immediate action is needed to stabilize the world's unstable magic. This tension between idealism and realism threatens to tear apart the fragile unity that remains. Darius, caught between these conflicting perspectives, knows that he cannot afford to be passive. The future of the world depends on his ability to heal these rifts, not just through strength, but through diplomacy, compassion, and trust. He decides to call a summit of the world's leaders, an unprecedented gathering of nations, factions, and peoples who had once been divided by the Architect's rule. The time for division is over. If the world is to survive, it must come together. The burden of leadership, Darius's inner struggle. Throughout this chapter, the emotional and psychological toll of leadership weighs heavily on Darius. The victory has come at the cost of his humanity. He feels the weight of the choices he made to destroy the mirror, to use power, and to sacrifice so much for an uncertain future. He is constantly haunted by the ghost of his father, the original architect, and the twisted legacy that continues to shape his destiny. In private moments, Darius often finds himself staring into the vast, desolate landscape, questioning his own worth and whether the world can ever truly heal from the scars left by the Architects. Despite the dark shadow of his past, Darius finds a renewed sense of purpose in the task before him. The world is broken, but he has the strength to rebuild it. But he knows that this cannot be done alone. He leans on Lyra, Zephyr, Rhea, and his closest allies, whose wisdom and support help him hold on to the values that made him a leader in the first place. Though each has their own doubts, they understand that their individual paths must now converge toward a single goal, the healing of the world. The reconciliation of factions. The chapter shifts to the summit that Darius organizes, where leaders of the rebellion, the old kingdoms, and the scattered tribes of the world come together to discuss the future. The tension is palpable. Old enemies must now sit side by side and work together for the first time in centuries. Some, like Rhea, argue that the wild magic must be contained, and that any attempt to harness it further will risk plunging the world into another dark age. Others, like Zephyr, believe the remaining magic must be studied and used as a tool for rebuilding, a new source of power to fuel the world's reconstruction. The summit sees a convergence of conflicting ideologies. There are heated arguments, moments of near violence, and accusations of betrayal. But Darius, no longer the young man he once was, holds firm in his resolve. He understands that no matter how fractured the world may be, it is still their world, and it is worth fighting for. Using all the wisdom he has gained through his trials, Darius begins to unite the factions, not through force, but through shared vision. Lyra speaks passionately about forgiveness, urging the leaders to put aside their differences and work together for a common future. Zephyr counters with a pragmatic approach of rebuilding with the new power the world is now, guiding the future with the strength of new alliances. Darius stands in the middle, acknowledging the truth of both perspectives, and proposes a plan that incorporates both healing and power, a balanced approach to using the magic of the world, not as a weapon, but as a tool for reconstruction, tempered by wisdom and restraint. A new path forward, a declaration of unity. In a powerful moment at the summit, Darius speaks to the gathered leaders, his voice resolute and clear. The world is broken, yes, but it is not beyond repair. We have the power to rebuild it, not through the dominance of one, but through the unity of all. The magic we once feared can be our salvation, but only if we approach it with respect. If we come together, no longer as conquerors or victims, but as stewards of this world, we can heal what has been shattered. He calls for the formation of a new council, one that represents the diversity of the world. A council that will oversee the use of magic and ensure that the balance between creation and destruction is maintained. This council, made up of leaders from all the factions, will govern the future of magic, ensuring that it is used not for power, but for rebuilding. The summit ends on a note of cautious optimism. It is clear that there is still much work to be done, but for the first time in a long while, the leaders leave the gathering with a shared sense of purpose. The world has been broken, but it is not beyond redemption. The first steps toward rebuilding have been taken. Darius's final struggle, forgiving himself. While the world begins to heal, Darius knows that the greatest battle still lies ahead. The battle within. The scars of his past, of his bloodline's legacy, of his choices, of the weight of leadership, are still with him. He realizes that while the world may be broken, so too is he. And the only way to heal the world is to heal himself. In quiet moments of solitude, Darius reflects on the man he once was, a leader driven by vengeance, anger, and a thirst for justice. Now, after all he has lost, he understands that true strength comes not from power, but from forgiveness. He must forgive himself for the darkness he embraced, for the mistakes he made, and for the pain he caused to those he loved. His journey toward self-forgiveness is slow and difficult, but with every step, he feels the weight lifting piece by piece. He shares these moments of reflection with Lyra, who has been a constant source of support. Together, they walk the path of redemption, knowing that their bond, built on trust and shared sacrifice, is one of the few things that can never be broken. The closing scene, a world reborn. The chapter closes with a symbolic moment. Darius stands at the edge of a forest that is beginning to recover from the devastation of the storms. The once barren trees are beginning to show signs of life. Small buds sprout from the branches. The earth is rich with new growth, and the first signs of spring have arrived. It is a symbol of the world's own regeneration. Darius takes a deep breath. Looking out over the horizon, the journey has been long and the road ahead remains uncertain. But for the first time in his life, he feels at peace with the choices he has made. The weight of leadership no longer feels like a burden, but a responsibility he is ready to embrace fully. He looks to the future with hope, knowing that while the scars of the past will never fade completely, they will no longer define him. He has become something more than the man who once sought vengeance. He has become a leader who understands that true strength lies in rebuilding, not just the world, but the soul.